You won't believe the truth.
Red Fox finally revealed about Nancy Culp and why it stayed hidden for decades. Red Fox, born John Elroy Sanford in 1922, wasn't just a funny man with a gravelly voice and razor-sharp comebacks. He was a pioneer, a rebel, and one of the boldest truth-tellers comedy has ever known. Raised in the rough South Side of Chicago, young Red knew hardship from the jump. Poverty, racism, rejection, and all of it would later fuel the fire in his stand-up act. He dropped out in 10th grade, hit the clubs, and never looked back. In the 40s and 50s, Red became a fixture on the Chitlin circuit, grinding through smoky bars and backroom lounges where black performers brought the house down, even if the world wasn't ready for them. His humor? Raw, raunchy, unfiltered, and absolutely electric. Too wild for radio, too real for TV, and way ahead of its time. Still, he made his mark. Red dropped more than 50 comedy albums with names like Laugh of the Party, You Got to Wash Your Ass, and I Ain't Lied Yet. No sugarcoating, no pulling punches, just real talk about race, sex, and society, long before that became the norm. He was the godfather of edgy, honest comedy. And without him, you don't get Pryor, you don't get Eddie, you don't get Rock. But in 1972, the world did catch up. Red got his shot at mainstream fame with Sanford and Son, and overnight he went from underground legend to primetime icon. As Fred Sanford, the grumpy, junk-dealing widower with a flair for fake heart attacks, he stole the show and the nation's heart. His chemistry with his TV son Lamont, his savage comebacks, and his constant, "I'm comin' Elizabeth," turned him into a household name. But behind the laughs, Red wasn't just clowning around. He was fighting for fairness, creative freedom, and proper respect in an industry that rarely gave black stars their due. Now here's where things get really personal. Red's love life was as unpredictable as his punchlines. 4 marriages, each one with its own highs, lows, and heartbreaks. His second marriage, to dancer Betty Jean Harris, was the most impactful. She gave up her career to manage his business and raise her daughter, whom Red adopted. But success didn't shield their love from cracks. By the mid-70s, infidelity and bitterness tore them apart, and the divorce got ugly. Real ugly. Red didn't stop searching for love, though. He married again. And again. Joy Uni Chung, then later Kaho Cho, his final wife who stood by him as he battled IRS troubles and declining health. With her, it was different. No glitz, no headlines. Just quiet loyalty, and a touch of redemption for a man who'd been burned by both fame and love. But out of all the stories people thought they knew about Red Fox, there was one name that always brought raised eyebrows. Nancy Culp. Yep, the buttoned-up Miss Jane Hathaway from the Beverly Hillbillies. What could she possibly have in common with a boundary-pushing comic like Red? Well, everything. In an interview that became legendary for those lucky enough to catch it, Red let the truth slip. He and Nancy weren't enemies, they weren't lovers, they were something way more rare in showbiz, true friends. Turns out, Red first met Nancy in the late 50s, not at some big Hollywood party, but at a humble diner where actors and comics went after gigs. They struck up a conversation. 2 misfits, one brash and unfiltered, the other clever and cool, laughing over the ridiculous rules of the industry. They didn't click despite their differences. They clicked because of them. Red loved her dry wit. Nancy admired his guts. Over time, they leaned on each other, especially when things got messy behind the scenes. During the early days of Sanford and Son, when network execs were unsure if Red was too much for TV, Nancy quietly had his back. She even wrote a letter to the higher-ups defending him, something Red didn't learn about until years later. No cameras, no credit, just loyalty. And while rumors swirled, was it romantic? Was there tension? Red shut all that down with a grin. "Nancy?" he said. "Nah, she was way too classy for a rascal like me. But she was real, funny, and smart as hell." He even admitted she inspired parts of Fred Sanford. The sharp tongue, the no-nonsense attitude, the surprise behind the softness. She reminded him that the best characters, like the best people, couldn't be boxed in. Now, fast forward to 1991. Red was filming The Royal Family, a new show meant to mark his big comeback. He was cracking jokes, charming the press, doing what he always did best. But something went wrong. After a tense exchange with a producer, Red was called back to the stage for a simple walkthrough. No lines, just cross behind a chair. And then, he collapsed. At first, everyone thought it was a bit. Come on, this was the Fred Sanford, the man who faked heart attacks on cue. But this time, it wasn't a joke. Della Reese, his co-star, rushed to his side. He whispered, "Get my wife." Twice. Those were his final words. Red Foxx died that day, taken by a real heart attack that echoed the gag he'd performed 1,000 times. The irony was brutal. The pain, real. He was 68. His passing shook the entertainment world. But even in death, Red's impact couldn't be ignored. Eddie Murphy, who considered Red a mentor and comedic giant, covered the funeral costs and made sure his hero got the farewell he deserved. Today, Red rests in Las Vegas, where he lived, loved, and made the world laugh. His grave bears his real name, John Elroy Sanford. But we remember him as Red Foxx. Fearless, funny, flawed, and unforgettable. So next time you hear someone say comedy legend, don't forget the man who opened the door for all the others, and the unlikely bond he shared with someone the world never expected. It just goes to show, even in Hollywood, some friendships are the real deal. If you were surprised by this story, hit that like button and subscribe for more untold truths behind the faces you thought you knew. And hey, remember, always tell the truth. Just tell it with a smile.